Twisted Christian coming to you about what's going on with Zion Oil today, folks. It seems like it's gotten there pretty low, and a lot of people are currently panic selling right now. So for me, and from the information that I'm getting ready to share with you, I am not worried at all whatsoever, and it's going to give you a lot more confidence in what's going on because we haven't heard a peep from Zion Oil yet. Right? This would be the day that they would need to get the 10 days at $1 minimum price. They would have to start releasing information as of today before closing. Right? But we have not seen that yet. Right? So we're going into another day. And going back in history and how the delisting process works, going before the panels, the extensions, and just researching all of that. And there's also some other issues on another reason why that we may not be seeing any news right now at this time. So I'm just looking at the Nasdaq application, the listing center for stocks that are listed on the Nasdaq, and it just goes through it just talks about the whole process of the dollar bid minimum, how it has to be consecutive for 10 days, and of course there's the process for appeals in that. Because I remember there was this whole fiasco with the stock in December and January. A lot of people didn't know what was going on, and it seemed like there wasn't any information, and we actually didn't find out what some of what really happened, what really took place. There was speculation that, of course, anytime that you go before the board or the panel, or you file an appeal, you don't get before the panel right away. These things take time. So if they're not compliant by a certain date and they requested a hearing with the panel, then what happens is then they have to wait to be able to get that hearing. And in the meantime, everything still continues as normal on Nasdaq. So when this information came out on March 19th on the Zion Oil website, and it was just about the Nasdaq hearing panel. All right, so all this whole hearing panel, all that stuff happened, I think, like back in January. And then the information about the final decision didn't come out, or at least Zion Oil didn't get it till March 13th, and of course we heard about 4 more days after that. It just says the Nasdaq hearing panel communicated this letter dated March 13th, 2020. The continued listing is subject to Zion Oil and Gas demonstrating compliance with a minimum of $1 bid price requirement set forth in the Nasdaq rules. Okay, so they went before the board, and they were able to prove that they can get this thing with the information that they have, that they showed to the Nasdaq panel. That's the information that we want to know about. And I think that information is the 3D seismic results. And who knows how big the oil deposit that they have found, at least according to the seismic results. So with knowing that, going into the future, they gave them a certain amount of time to get all this done, right? Without any delays or anything like that. They should have been compliant by the June 26th time, right? They would have had their rig over there. They would have had the crew over there. They would have been drilling for oil. And at this point right now, we would probably be finding out what the plans are, how they're going to transport the oil from the drill site location. But what happened was the virus, right? And when the virus came, it shut everything down. It shut all the borders down, right? Then Nasdaq gave another extension to all companies who had received a deficiency letter. All right. Now keep in mind that according to the podcast from what I listened to, it would take a total of 21 days to build the rig, test it, drill for oil. And there's like a period of time where they actually are testing the oil. So they can get it done. They could have gotten it done within the time frame, but because of the virus of everything shutting down. Right? So they gave all companies a certain date. Now, one of the things that I discovered when researching the whole compliance and just all the issues that surround you, all the issues that could surround being delisted. Okay, so I'm on another piece of information from the listing center from Nasdaq, and it deals with Rule 501, but there are different sections, but the word discretionary is always is found out throughout this information. Just like this one here says, Nasdaq has broad discretionary authority over initial continued listing of securities in Nasdaq in order to maintain the quality and public confidence in its market, to prevent fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices, to promote just and equitable principles of trade, and to protect investors and the public interest. Well, one of the things that I do realize that that with this whole thing, with Nasdaq giving Zion Oil even more time, to me that was an act, partly an act of knowing the information that they have, but also to protecting the investor. So they have, if they didn't think that they could make it by that time, they would have not given them the extension. But this also too discretionary. The whole thing about the 10-day rule, right? If Zion Oil doesn't release any news today, tomorrow, or the next day, and maybe in 3 or 4 days they announce that they got the drill up and they got oil and all this other stuff, or they just start releasing the information, the 3D seismic, and that they're building the drill, and the stock goes up, they have the discretion whether or not, if okay, they didn't do it, they didn't meet the dollar requirement on the day of, but they still required it with a few days after the requirement bid, or after the final extension. They work with Nasdaq and they stay on a schedule, right? And this schedule which was delayed by COVID. They gave them the extension, but because of the border closings and the quarantine issues and all that stuff, right, it delayed Zion Oil even further. So technically, even if they don't get it, they can file an appeal. Or if they don't do it within the time frame that we're all looking at. We're all looking at it has to be from today until September 8th. Well, what if they don't start releasing their news 2 days from now? And that doesn't mean it necessarily happens on September 8th. You're not going to see that. Because then the investors definitely for sure would not be protected, because Nasdaq is saying that they have the information. They have enough to get the price over a certain amount. And we don't really know what's discussed in these panels, folks. And the other issue is I've discussed this in previous Zion Oil videos. I think maybe even going back. Okay, and I've discussed in my videos, and I think I even have a Patreon only video dealing with Zion Oil. And what it deals with is that this whole thing with the oil and gas and the 3D seismic data, you guys have to understand that this could be a very huge national security issue with Israel, which means that it's a national security issue with Zion Oil. It's a national security issue with the oil rig. It's a national security issue with the crew. You got to remember, they have a lot of enemies. And this is not your normal oil company. It's not your normal regular company that you could trade on the stock market. This situation is a little bit different, because if they were giving everybody updates where the rig was at, where it's going, and everything, right? If they gave out all that information, they could be open to sabotage. So, and I think I discussed in the video on the Patreon where I did discuss that it was a national security issue, that Zion Oil needs to be careful in how they release the news. So maybe they have delayed everything, and maybe they did get an extension. But also too, I want you to hear what Currency 365 has to say. He did an intro at the beginning of my last video, so I'm going to play that afterwards, and he has some very interesting thoughts on that too as well. That, you know, for all we know, that they could have gotten an extension. For all we know, they could have said, you know, because of it's a national security issue, you want to get things up and going, so we're going to give you the time that you need. And like I said, because of the shipping and the border and the quarantine issues with the crew, what is going to happen is that even if they were at the verge of being delisted and then the information comes out, it doesn't even matter, because they can always file an appeal, right? There are 3 things that Zion Oil can do, or that can happen with Zion Oil, if they want to stay listed. Even if they don't meet the requirement in the dates that they were set forth, they can file an appeal and go before the panel. just like they have been doing. And they've been working with the panel, I'm pretty sure, this whole time. Right? And they can also go to court. They can file a suit in court to stay listed. Or Nasdaq, using its broad discretionary powers, can also just say, okay, we're not going to worry about the exact time frame. Right? I'm sure there are probably a few other scenarios too as well, but those are the three main ones that I see. So that's why I am not too worried. I'm not too worried. Appeals, they take time. If that was to happen, and I think in this case, I think it's a security issue with Israel, protecting the company, protecting its employees, and protecting the region. Because the 3D seismic data can really tell a lot of what's really going on. And the Nasdaq panel has seen that information. They've had to have seen that information in order to get that last extension. And so because of the delays, they could have gotten an easily a 15-day extension. Now that I'm doing the research and looking at all this information, when I do go to Google Maps and I look at the day that the rig arrived, and maybe you count it from the 19th or even the 20th, it definitely goes past the 21 days. Definitely goes past the September 8th deadline. So literally, they could announce all the, and this is the way that I look at this whole thing with the delisting and the panel. They could literally announce all their information on September the 8th and then run for 10 days straight at $1 or more and then still file an appeal. Or Nasdaq says, okay, you made the requirement because we're not going to go by the exact date that you actually were able to get your stock over $1. So folks, this is, in most companies, and I'll tell you from my experience, most companies that are facing delisting, I'm talking about, okay, I'm going to tell you about a company, a pharmaceutical company who was in threats to be delisted, right? There was some pending news that was going to come out. It was like more of a level 2 news concerning trials and, whatever, vaccination trials or whatever, and they were only on the second level. So they still have a few more second phase. There were still phases that they had to go through. And so what happened was, because the news wasn't going to be, it wasn't like an approval from the FDA or anything like that. The stock was already close. They were getting closer to that day where they were going to have to either delist or do a reverse split, and they end up doing a reverse split. Because it could be another year. It was going to be like another 6 months before the results of phase 3. So any investor, or if a panel was to see that, they probably wouldn't have given them an extension anyway. So why waste their time going before the board? Because they didn't have anything that they were going to be able to produce within the time frame. And so I've seen I've seen some oil companies that they've just fallen apart, and they just do the reverse split. It's just easier just to try to get that done and over with, and hope that after the reverse split that it maintains its price for 10 days. I would say probably most companies do it. And for those of you who do trade penny stocks, you guys have seen it. You saw Tops did it the other day or the other week, where they did a reverse split. But that company's been failing for a long time. So if they don't think if a company doesn't think that they can get it over $1 themselves, they're not going to go ahead and approach the board. And if the board doesn't think you can get it over $1, they're not going to give you the extension. I think the most time frame you get before the final phase is actually a total of basically a year. And so there are things, like I said, with the Nasdaq listing panel, they have discretionary power. So all we're doing is right now we're waiting for news. I don't think there's anything to be concerned about with this whole thing, with this 10-day rule now, just because of Zion Oil's options plus Nasdaq's discretionary. Especially if this is a national security issue, folks. Because if they consider that it's a national security issue, then for sure they're not going to be. Then it's going to be okay if they don't get it, if they don't get this in by the 8th. And very well they could have gotten an extension. They could have got a 15-day. They could have just gave them another 30-day extension for all we know. So these are just the things that I'm learning, and doing the research on this, I wish I would have came across all this information before. It may have changed my trading strategy concerning how I was going to buy, but a lot of people don't know that you ask questions of people they don't know, even if they've been trading for a long time. There's the whole process. There's the whole discretionary thing, and it takes a special company to be able to get to the level, to be able to get the extensions and get the favorite that they're getting with Nasdaq. It takes a lot. So right now, folks, I'm gonna let you listen to Currency 365. What on some of his thoughts, what he was saying. In my opinion, if it hasn't already been there and built and all that, that they are into the 5th or 6th day of constructing that rig, and we're just going to be waiting on any piece of news, whether it is dealing with all of that or some type of extension. That just all remains to be seen. So I'm just going to keep watching, seeing what's going on, checking the websites, and also too just being on guard for this because I don't want to miss out. I missed out when it got up to like the 80 cents, and by the time I woke up, I saw it like in this at like 69 cents, and by the time what the heck was going, by the time I figured out what the heck was going on, I think I was able to sell out like at 54 cents, and then buy back in. I bought back in the. I think my average is below. My average is below 39. Made some money. So I don't want to miss out. I want to be able to be there at that high. Currency 365 talks about a dream that he had that it skyrocketed to $4.77. So I'm thinking, is this my sell point, or is my sell point a little bit lower? Because we got to remember that it's all based off of you can sell your stock doesn't mean that somebody's going to buy it for that price. So for me, when I hear that, to me that's like divine intel. I do the research. And now we just wait on the news. The first piece of news that comes out that they release is going to be very important in determining how high I think it's going to go and also in the long term as well. All right, folks, thank you for listening. Thank you guys for all your support. We'll be watching, waiting, and seeing how this all takes place. And don't forget, I have the Telegram, which you can access through the Patreon. That way I'm trying to keep up and other people can help trying to help keep up with information that is coming through so that we don't miss anything. All right, and with that being said, Twisha Christian out.
All right, all right. Welcome back to Currency 365. Okay, so this is a quick intro to TC's video about Zion Oil and Gas. A lot of people are in panic right now because Zion Oil and Gas is supposed to tomorrow be trading over $1 by close, and then stay above $1 for 10 consecutive trading days, which would I think put us around September 8th for the close. Okay, that was their deadline they were given, that they have to be trading above $1 for 10 consecutive trading days to meet the requirements of Nasdaq. Okay, now, Zion Gas has been in meetings with NASDAQ because they've sent out the letters and everything to have meetings with NASDAQ. They got what, maybe 3 extensions this year, okay, already. So they got extended last year twice or 3 times last year as well. So lots of extensions. They've had maybe about 6 extensions, okay, to try to get over $1 and close above $1 and stay above $1. I don't know what's so hard with staying above $1. I'm not sure what's going on. I know the reason why they couldn't get over $1 last time or over the spring was because Zion and Gas themselves were selling shares in the open markets. Why? Because they wanted to buy the rig. Okay, and they told Nasdaq that, and Nasdaq knew, so they gave them extensions. Okay. You're gonna sell shares in the open market, and that's gonna dilute your sell price, your stock price, because you're selling shares. Okay, and then you're gonna buy a rig. Okay, we got that, and then you're gonna go to Israel and you're gonna drill and all this stuff. Right. So So Nasdaq knows that Nasdaq's working with them. Okay, so that's why you don't see Dino and Gas out here panicking, because we were the ones that are panicking. Because you know what I mean. But you don't see you don't see Dino and Gas panicking. Matter of fact, if you go to their Twitter, they're just thanking people for supporting Dino and Gas. They're not even panicking. Okay, you can't. You try to call them or whatever, you won't get any panic from them. Oh yeah, we know, because they're working with Nasdaq. Okay, they're working with Nasdaq. Nasdaq already knows they were delayed because of the virus and things like that to get their rig over. So maybe they get one more extension into December. Maybe they don't. Maybe they bring out some news, historic news tomorrow about their seismic activities and the layout of where the oil is and blah 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 blah. I don't know what they're going to do. All I had was that dream. I don't know what. I don't know. Okay, so I guess let's wait and see what happens tonight into tomorrow. On what they do. They might stay quiet and do nothing because maybe Nasdaq gave them an extension. We don't know. We didn't know in December. Remember December 2019? We were all trying to figure out why is Zion and Gas not saying nothing, right? Zion and Gas didn't say nothing for like 5, 6, 7 days. Okay, and then they put out a statement. Oh yeah, we got an extension from Nasdaq. Nasdaq didn't say nothing. They didn't stop trading. So they're working behind the scenes with Nasdaq. So if they don't say anything, it's because they've already been cleared to get more time. Okay, so I guess we'll all find out how this all plays out. But if Zion Gas isn't sweating it, then I guess the investors shouldn't be sweating it. I guess I don't know. Okay, but some of you guys have a lot of money on the line, so you should you should be worried about your money, right? Unless you put more than you can afford to lose. Now that's a rule number one. No, right? Never invest more than you can afford to lose. But of course, many people still do that, and then you'll cry about it. But that's the number one rule in trading and in investing. Never put more money than you can afford to lose. Okay, it doesn't matter how good it sounds. Doesn't matter what you think's gonna happen. Doesn't matter if somebody has a dream or a prophetic word about these things. This is reality. This is human life. Things can always happen. Never put as much money that you can afford to lose. Okay, so some of you guys probably put too much money in it, and then you're freaking out right now. Okay, and some of you guys didn't. Some of you guys are buying the dips right now, and you're like, hey, it's at 36 cents right now. I'm not sure when TC did this video because you see here it says 39 cents, but right now is at maybe he did it early this morning, but to right now is at like 36, 37 cents or something like that. So some of the guys in the Telegram group are buying it up right now. Buying some doesn't mean it's going to go higher tomorrow, right? Because if news drops tomorrow and it's the seismic test about where the oil is or the rig update or whatever, cool, you know what I mean, great, and we go up from there, right? But if it doesn't come out, if nothing comes out for another week or two, and the stock goes down 35 cents as everybody's waiting, then that's what it does. Okay, like I said, if Zion Gas isn't in a hurry and isn't in panic mode, that's because they're working with Nasdaq, excuse me, behind the scenes, and they don't have anything to worry about if they're working with Nasdaq. They're gonna give them more time, and they'll get everything situated, in my opinion. Okay, but hey, we could wake up one day and they can be like, hey, we didn't get it done, so we're going to the pink sheets or the OTCBB area. Everybody be like, what the freak, man? I mean, like, so I don't know. Okay. But imagine if they did something like that. Imagine if they did. Let's just play the caveat or whatever you want to call it. What if they did do something like that where the rig is in Israel? They could have put the rig news out. That would have helped the stock, right? We're ready to go. The rig's in Israel, right? They never do. Imagine they never do that, and the rig's in Israel, ready to go, and they just say, "Oh, we delisted from Nasdaq. We're going to the OTCBB. Don't worry about it." And they never put the news out about the rig being in Israel, ready to go, and they just never did that. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? So I'm hoping they don't do that. That's why we're speaking about it now, so they don't do that. Okay, somebody that's from Zion Gas or representatives from Zion Gas, don't do that. Okay, if the rig is in Israel, can you give us the rig news, and can you get some excitement going for the company here? Everybody's been waiting on this rig for months and months and months and months. If the rig's in Israel, ready to go, and things are ready to line up, we need to hear that news now, soon. You know what I mean? Like clock is ticking. Okay, so even if you're getting an extension, doesn't matter. Let's get the news out. Let's make some money. Let's go. Like let's have fun. This is supposed to be fun as well. And it's an investment, but it's also supposed to be fun. Anyways, peace out. God bless. Let's get into TC's video about Zion and Gas. Bye.
Torsia Christian, I'm going to get right into it because we are within 48 hours. Something big has to happen for Zion Oil in order for it to continue on Nasdaq. And I believe they actually have a strategy as far as releasing the news. Everything from